What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League news video. And originally I didn't really plan on uploading anything tonight because I was working on something I had planned for tomorrow, but there's a lot of breaking news that's been coming out over the last 24 hours or so I knew I needed to sit down and just have a discussion about this with you guys because there's a lot to take in. What I have lined up for you in this video is Taimu leaving the Dallas Fuel to join Team Envy in Overwatch Contenders, Mangachu being downgraded to a two-way player on Toronto Defiance Academy team known as Montreal Rebellion. Then we have the San Francisco Shock changing their color scheme, we have the Valiant changing their color scheme and announcing a few new player acquisitions, and finally we have FD God signing with the Paris Eternal. As you can see, there's a whole bunch we have to cover, so let's not waste any more time here. Let's talk about Taimu first. So at approximately 6:30 p.m. my time, the Dallas Fuel did make an announcement on their Twitter that said that Taimu would be leaving the Dallas Fuel and joining Team Envy in Contenders. And the Dallas Fuel made it very clear in this tweet that Taimu is not coming back as some sort of two-way player or anything like that. He is just straight up a full-time player in Contenders now. His tenure with the Dallas Fuel is over. This is really sad stuff, but it's very sweet of the Fuel to say things like, "We can't thank Mr. Good Aim enough for his unparalleled passion, spirit, and energy." I think that's really nice of them to say stuff like that. But yeah, this is it for Taimu and the Dallas Fuel. They're done. And if you follow Taimu on Twitter, then you were probably already well aware that something was going to happen. Something was about to change with this guy. For those of you who don't follow him though, first off, he changed his profile picture and his Twitter banner. It's like, hey, whatever, maybe he's going through another mental breakdown or something. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. But then he says, hey, I signed a new contract today. Pretty excited. And that got people thinking, what could he be doing? Is he going to a new team? Is he signing a contract extension with the Fuel? Is he going to be a full-time streamer or something? What's the deal? But then shortly after, he says, "I'll miss you boys" to Harry Hook and Mickey, and then you're like, okay, he's leaving the Fuel. He's not coming back at this point. Something happened. So then the day continues, no announcements come out, but he just keeps spamming Twitter about all sorts of different things. His mind is everywhere, but then today, the Fuel say, yeah, Taimu's not on the team anymore. He's going to Team Envy. And when you think about it, this move makes sense for a multitude of different reasons. For one, Taimu's services really aren't required at this point anymore. They're not all that valuable. There's already a bunch of people on this team as it is who are good at hit scan. AKM basically has the exact same hero pool as Taimu, then guys like Zachary, Decay, and Doha have all shown the ability to play hit scan in the past too, so what use is there for somebody like Taimu? At that point, you're essentially just wasting a roster spot on him, and I mean, what could he contribute that the other DPS players on the team couldn't, other than maybe like veteran presence or perhaps energy levels? But that's what you have Mickey and Harry Hook for, you know? They're also veterans that have been here for a long time, so it's no big deal. And I mean, let's call it how it is. He probably wasn't going to get much playtime anyway. They have some new DPS players on this roster, it's a new look for the Dallas Fuel, and Taimu barely played it all in 2019 anyway. Dallas made the right move here if you ask me. It's really sad to see Taimu leave because he's really awesome. I know a lot of people in this community love him to death, but at the end of the day, now you have an extra roster spot which you can use to maybe get a backup main tank, you can get another support player on the roster. There's so many different options available to you now. The other big reason that comes to mind instantly for me as to why it's a good idea to get rid of Taimu is that he hasn't been the same player for a long time now. Ever since the beginning of his Overwatch League career, things have just been going on this up and down roller coaster constantly for him. So many different emotions. He's gone through so much over these last couple of years, and I think at the end of the day, he's still not happy and he knows he's not going to play, so you might as well make him happier. Give him a chance to play again, even if it means going back to Contenders. Plus, let's be honest, we don't need that negative energy on any sort of team out there. If Taimu's not happy and it's clear that he's going to get upset about not playing, just get him out of there. He's not good for the team at that point if he's just going to sit around and be sad all the time. There's also the fact that Taimu is a super shaky player these days. He's really inconsistent with his DPS play. Sometimes he looks unstoppable and like one of the best hits game players in the league, like in 2018 on Widowmaker for an example during Stage 4. But then there's those other times where he just looks completely out of it. I don't know if it's his mindset or he's just really nervous on stage. Something affects him to the point where the opposition just absolutely crushes him. But back to the he'd rather play in Contenders to be happy thing, he actually goes on his Twitter and says that's the exact reason why he left the Fuel. He wanted to play again. He realized that he didn't want to be on the bench anymore and that he didn't want to be a streamer because that's not the life for him, and that he just wants to be a pro player again. He wants to be competitive. He misses that. He was willing to give up the spotlight and the contract he'd get as an Overwatch League player if it meant that he'd be happy again and that he would be a starter on a team. And that is something I can respect greatly. Good on Taimu for making this decision. I think that any human being out there should prioritize their happiness when they're able to and when it's under their control. Taimu knew that he couldn't keep living his life this way. It wasn't healthy for him and he knew he still wanted to be a pro gamer, so why not take the opportunity if it's presented to you, you know? And I know this is going to sound super cliche, but it's really true in Taimu's case at least, where money doesn't always buy happiness. And that is something we should all keep in mind, right? Sometimes it's the little things that make us way happier than anything money could buy. And that's basically everything I have to say about this Taimu situation, so best of luck to Taimu in his future endeavors. Hopefully he pops off in contenders and maybe even makes it back into the league one day. As long as he's happy, that's all that matters to me. I'd hate to see him go into a poor mental state again. Okay, so moving on to topic number 2, Mangachu is officially going to be a two-way player for the Toronto Defiant now. He is no longer a full-time member of this team and he will now be part of the Montreal Rebellion. When thinking about it though, Mangachu going down to contenders is probably for the best, because if we're going to be honest, he wasn't all that amazing in the Overwatch League in 2019. He did some good things here and there, but he definitely did leave a lot to be desired, and here's his chance to improve and sharpen his skills. And as it turns out, Feifei, the head coach of the Toronto Defiant, basically explained that this is a big reason why Mangachu got downgraded to a two-way player. So here's what he had to say regarding the move. Mangachu and I talked a lot about it, and it was a common decision that it was the best for him and his development. He is still a part of the Owl team, and I am sure he's going to shine with our academy, and we will need him on the long run. So yeah, as you can see, clearly Feifei and Mangachu mutually agreed that it would be in the best interest of Mangachu to go back down to contenders and further hone his skills. But also, what I find very interesting is that Feifei basically hints that Mangachu is coming back to the team one day, as they will need him in the long run apparently. And as a side note, even though this doesn't entirely have to do with Mangachu, I think this Montreal Rebellion team is looking really cool. They have Mangachu and Roki as two-way players, but then they also signed Leaf, the DPS player who formerly just played on Team France in the 2019 World Cup, and that's a really sneaky but solid pickup. The guy was a nutcase on Doomfist and Pharah in the World Cup, and while I don't want to make any guarantees, I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, Toronto will sign him to their Overwatch League roster one day, because he really does deserve it. He's a truly talented player. Also, having both Leaf and Mangachu on your Montreal Rebellion roster means that they're probably going to be competing for playtime over each other, since they're both flex DPS players. So that's a good way for both of them to possibly improve and just stay extra motivated. As for how this affects the Toronto Defiant, well, it looks like Agilities is going to be the full-time flex DPS player, with Logix and Surefour probably circling in and out of the rotation for Hitscan. Even without Mangachu, this DPS rotation looks pretty good. I know that these guys are kind of inconsistent at times, but when they're feeling it, they're really dangerous. All three of them. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about Mangachu moving down to the Montreal Rebellion as a two-way player. Now let's move on to the San Francisco Shock, who officially announced their color changes for 2020. After trying out orange and gray, they decided that it was time to make a change, so instead they're going to have orange, silver, and black as their new team colors, which is really cool if you ask me. It's a little sad that we're not going to see the orange and gray jerseys anymore, because I thought those looked really good in 2019, but if these jerseys look anything like these brand new skins, then they're going to look super clean. And I mean, I'm definitely not the only person who likes these new colors, right? I think they just look so good. It reminds me a lot of the Oakland Raiders for any of my NFL fans out there, and that's something I can definitely get behind. Paying respect to the Oakland Raiders is awesome, but make sure to let me know what you think of this recolor down in the comment section. Do you like the Shock's new colors more than the last ones, or did you prefer the old ones? If you ask me, these colors are really nice, and I think that the skins overall are an upgrade compared to the old ones, and I definitely plan to get a couple of them in the future when they're finally out. And that's all I got for you when it comes to the San Francisco Shock color change, so now let's talk about the Los Angeles Valiant, who made 3 different announcements. So first off, the Valiant, like with the Shock, changed their colors. They went from green and gold, or I guess green and yellow depending on who you're talking to blue and gold/yellow. And while I can kind of understand why they changed their colors, because they wanted to represent that California blue sky, as well as this just being a new team in general, so since it's a new team, you want to have new colors, you want to just change everything up, but I really don't like them, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I think that going with blue is just very unoriginal, since we have so many blue teams in the league already. Like, we have the NYXL, we have the Dallas Fuel, the London Spitfire, the Boston Uprising. Why do you also want to be blue? Be unique, why don't you? In my eyes, the green is what made this team special. It's what made them unique. There were a couple of other green teams in the league, yes, but unlike the Outlaws and the Titans, the Valiant used green as their primary color. And now you're just another ordinary blue team. And at first glance, you could say their new skins look a lot like the Boston Uprisings. Obviously, the shade of blue is different, but if you just like glance from afar or really quickly, you could barely even tell the difference. So yeah, not only are the Valiant being super uncreative by being yet another blue team, but they also have a very similar color scheme to another team in the league, and that's just a big mistake if you ask me. Why do you want to lose fans, Valiant? Don't you want to gain fans? This is not helping your case at all. Since I'm a Valiant fan, I probably might pick up like 1 or 2 skins just because why not? But you won't see me buying many of these skins. I'm not a huge fan. I don't think they look horrible. It's not the worst color scheme in the league, but it's just too unoriginal for my liking. Like with the Shock, make sure to let me know what you think of the Valiant color changes down in the comment section. Are you a fan of them, or do you hate them like me? But besides the Valiant changing their colors, they finally announced the addition of two players that we've known about for a while now, that being Gig, the main tank player from XL2 Academy, and Rain, who was the former main support from the Florida Mayhem in 2019. I highly doubt anybody's going to sit here and say, oh my god, the Valiant just got a steal. They got two really good players, but at the end of the day, they still did fill out some of their roster needs, as they now have two main tanks, that being Dreamer and now Gig, but also they have a main support player finally. Since Custer retired, Rain is likely going to be the starter for this team unless they sign somebody else in the near future. And when it comes to like a casual fan standpoint, I would say most people really don't know all that much about either Gig or Rain, and that kind of includes myself, to be honest. So when it comes to Rain, when we talk about him first, we really didn't see him play all that much for Florida, and when he did play, he kind of left a lot to be desired, but maybe under a new system he'll play a lot better for all we know, or he'll play worse. I'm not really too sure. Now as we shift our attention back over to the American main tank player Gig, well, ever since he joined XL2 Academy back in June, the team has found a fair amount of success. They came in second place in August for North American Contenders West, and most recently the team finished top 6 in the gauntlet held in Korea. Now I know the sample size here isn't big and that's not a huge track record to go off of or anything, but based off of those results, that's not too bad. But now the Valiant have to make a decision, unless it's really meta dependent, I suppose. Do you want to go with Gig, who's the American main tank player, or do you want Dreamer, who's the South Korean player? Or do you want to play both of them? I'm not really sure how that's going to work. And the same thing can be said for their flex support position, as they have both Lastro and Slur. Even after making these roster additions, it's still unclear who's going to be the projected starter at a couple of positions for the Valiant come 2020. The Gig and Rain move just fit in perfectly with the rest of these roster additions. They're all a bunch of unknown players with hidden potential that we just don't know all that much about, so it's going to be interesting to see how they do in 2020. With that said, that is basically everything I have to say about the Los Angeles Valiant's new player acquisition, so now let's quickly just shift over to FD God signing with the Paris Eternal. And if you didn't watch the World Cup, you probably don't know who this guy is, or you haven't heard much about him, but let me tell you that he was actually a pleasant surprise for Team France in the World Cup this year. He was really solid. And also, because he's from France, that means that's another player from France on Paris Eternal. If my math is correct, if you add an FD God, that leaves the Paris Eternal with 5 French players now. While this definitely isn't a game-changing type of move, I still think it's a really good one, because like I said, FD God showed a whole bunch of promise in the World Cup, and I think it's good to have some competition at that main support position. I thought Cruz was good, but he was kind of inconsistent at times, and maybe FD God can bring that consistency that you need. And even if the Paris Eternal don't plan to utilize FD God all that much, he still serves as a really good backup, right? With all the traveling going on, players are going to need to rest here and there because of burnout, so if Cruz needs a rest, then you can put in FD God and not really see much of a decrease in performance. And let's not forget, there's also the chance that FD God's the starter and Cruz ends up being the backup. It can go either way. Regardless of how much FD God ends up getting utilized, I think most people will agree with me when I say that it's a good signing nonetheless, you know? It doesn't really hurt you in the long run. You have a backup at main support now potentially, or maybe your future starter. Then also, because the guy is French, that's only going to attract more fans to this team. And yeah, that's basically everything I have to say about the Paris Eternal's new acquisition, so that basically concludes today's news video. So if you did enjoy it, I would appreciate it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure to let me know what you think of all of these moves down in the comments section. And if you'd like to further support me, consider joining my Discord through the link in the description, following me on Twitter, and becoming a member on my channel today. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate your support, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.